Best.Podcast.Ever is sponsored by the Gertzberg Law Firm, a full-service, award-winning business law firm in Cleveland and Chagrin Falls that appreciates what matters most to businesses: practical advice and cost-effective results. We understand your business because our team has the unique perspective of having real-world business experience themselves. Learn more at gertzberglaw.com. While you're there, be sure to check out Cover My Six, a proprietary legal audit that will identify, target, and minimize your business's exposure to lawsuits and government investigations. Go to covermysix.com to learn how you can prevent a lawsuit before it starts. Enjoy the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're about to listen to the best podcast ever recorded.
So what I tend to tell people is that I am more apt to ask them what they need than to tell them what I need.
Molly.
Yeah, baby, it's Monday.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
That was awesome. I really like that sound effect.
I did too.
That was fantastic.
John, you can record that and use it in others if you like.
No, that was good. That was the sound of Molly cracking open a can of whoop ass that's about to come out on this podcast. Did you hear that, ladies and gentlemen? The whoop ass is about to start.
Yeah, no, actually that was a can of bubbly, since I am still Diet Coke free. After we really do need to find out what that date was that Dan was on.
Dan Continenza.
The first.
Yeah, we should. It shouldn't be that hard. Hey, I've got similar news about that. Do you know what I haven't done in 12 days?
Sex.
Molly, how dare you?
I don't know.
Eat
Just
meat.
guessing. Really?
I had no meat for 12 days.
Okay. Is that why you're so fidgety? You're very fidgety.
Oh, am I?
Yeah, you're.
I wonder if that's related. I don't think think I'm any more or less fidgety than usual.
Okay.
No, that was purely experimental. I just wondered what my body would do if I didn't eat meat for a while. Can't say I've noticed anything. However, I am very aware of the impact that we all have meat-wise. There is a lot of data that says that people who eat meat versus people who don't eat meat have different health risks, right? So the cancer risk goes down if you don't eat meat. There's a lot of data to support that. There's also a lot of environmental stuff that happens when there's mass-produced cow parts and pig parts happening in factory farm. I'm not
one of those people.
No, I'm not. You do whatever you want. I'm just saying that is I do feel good about not contributing to that.
Okay.
Now, here's what's happened though. What's happened, this will piss you off what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway because you've got that can of whoop ass that you just cracked open.
John, get the buzzer ready to beep him out.
No, this is more me. I have, Tiffany and I, we eat at restaurants quite a bit, and I have internal conflict happening when the dude next to me is eating this really juicy steak that 12 days ago I would have been eating, and I'm noticing the kinds of thoughts that my mind generates now that I'm taking some time off of meat.
So
they're not good. They're not good thoughts.
You're a meat addict. Those are addiction thoughts, I think.
Well, here's what.
Or jealousy.
Let me tell you what one of those thoughts is. Right.
Oh boy.
I think to myself, oh, that steak.
Was just
Bessie the cow.
No, stop.
Only days ago.
Stop your shit.
Mooing.
Oh my gosh. Enough. Let's talk naked firemen.
Oh, Chile.
Let's go from
Can I tell you something?
meat to real meat. Oh, gosh, I'm funny.
That was actually a really good segue.
That was a great segue.
So what you're saying is you want to keep talking about meat.
I want to keep talking about meat.
But now you want to talk about man meat.
And no, we do have a lady in here.
Miss March in the calendar is pretty.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
good thing I'm not taken I am taken.
Right. She is gorgeous.
Sorry. She's
Miss
beautiful.
May. Was it May?
Miss March.
Miss March.
2021.
Miss March.
What are we talking about here, Molly?
So we are talking about the Chagrin Falls firefighter calendar that I have been begging Chief Zugan for about 3 years to do. And I got a call a couple months ago that said, Molly, I'm going to make your day. I'm going to let you do it and run with it. And it's your project, which I've never done a calendar before, but you know me, I'm like, okay, whatever. So I call in our good friend, my dearest friend, Rob Sapp. I said, hey, Rob, we're going to take some pictures of some half-naked firefighters. You in? Of course, what's his answer? Absolutely, because he is a doer and a giver. And we set up 2 days of shooting. And I picked each month. He sent me all the photos. I picked each month. I designed it. I put all the little birth dates in there, sold an ad to each month. And so all the funds for this calendar, it was just released this weekend, go to the Chagrin Falls Fire Department's campaign for renovation. They have there weren't firefighter women in the, is it a force?
Department.
Thank you. And yes, that makes
Jesse,
me want to have a martini.
Making martinis
so badly.
Check out Vince doing push-ups on. Keep going.
They need quarters for the ladies. They need a bathroom and a bedroom in the fire department and the firehouse.
This is raising money for that?
It's raising money for that and some other renovations within the fire department or the firehouse. So you can get your calendars. They are $24.95. They are the perfect holiday gift. They just made Oprah Winfrey's gift list. Not really, but is Oprah really going to be listening to our podcast? And you could purchase them at Shed, Chagrin Yoga, Bell Market Express, Fireside Bookstore, and the Chagrin Falls Township Hall. And I will tell you, get them while you can. They are selling like hotcakes. And it is an 18-month calendar because I couldn't cut anybody.
Yeah, the one constructive feedback I was going to give you is if you do a 12-month, then you can do this again.
Exactly, but I just didn't want to say no to anybody.
No, look, this is a very, very well-made calendar, and I love the charitable aspect to it, Molly. I will also say that
Brittany?
these guys clearly work out,
yes.
and that's great.
Yes.
There's a lot of this September 2020 picture's got abs that I've got ab
little
envy.
jelly.
Yeah.
The cover is the chief of the fire department, Chief Zugan. He is the cover, as he should be.
Yeah, it's funny because this is a great opportunity to check some society temperature, right? So Molly, how many screams on Village Block Club do you think we would see jumping through our computer if this was a women fire? A ladies' calendar.
That's why I'm glad that Brittany stepped up and joined.
Nice job, Brittany. Is Brittany married?
She is not married. She's a bartender, and I'll tell you off where she's a bartender, and you could go visit her anytime.
Brittany, I'm
beautiful
engaged,
and
Brittany,
so sweet.
I can't do it right, but you're smoking.
So there is eye candy for both.
Yeah.
Eye candy for both. So it was a lot of fun, and I will tell you, they were so timid at first, and then
this dude.
I got to tell you about that.
Mr. November, Jerry is smelling flowers.
Yes. Let me tell you something about Jerry.
He's half naked.
We had Jerry holding a boot, and that was kind of his picture, because they collect in the boot. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And we were actually walking back to the station, and there was those flowers. I said, hey, was he Ryan? No. What's his name? King.
Jesse?
No, the guy that was smelling the flowers.
Jerry
King. I said, hey, Jerry, stop for a minute and smell those flowers. And that ended up being the shot. Yeah.
Molly, I
so grab
commend
your
you.
calendars,
Job
folks.
well done.
Thank you.
And people can get them again where?
Yeah, Chagrin Yoga, the Township Hall, Fireside Bookstore, and Bell Market Express. Or you can get them online at cffddonations.org, which I'm sure Nellie will put up on the website and Facebook. Great cause. So grab your calendars. And a great little, a fun little holiday gift. Your mother would love one of these, I bet.
I'm not getting one for my mother. You know what?
Papa G.
I'll get her one. So folks can find the Gertzberg Law Firm version of the of next year's calendar. Is going to be
that's what everyone's saying to me.
It's not very flattering.
I ran into a couple of ladies who live in Lake Lucerne, and they're like, "Let's do a Lake Lucerne men's calendar." I'm like, "Hey, I'm for hire. I'll do it. I'll design it. I'll take the pictures." The hardware store, we keep joking with them. We are going to be doing a signing. We just did a signing over the weekend. It was open to the public. But then I think we're going to do one at the hardware store where you can purchase calendars and get them signed by some of the firefighters. So, yeah.
Lovely.
Yes. And
I like the creativity, Molly.
It was fun.
This is you. This is what you do. And, you did your thing, and you were creative, and a vision came out of that bean between your ears, and
it did,
and it manifested. And that's what I've been saying about you for all of this time. It's one of the reasons I love you, is that you don't stop at the idea phase. You make shit happen.
Get it done. Yeah, that was fun. That was fun. Speaking of, book number 4 is coming out in 2 weeks. That's Sherman. Sherman is book 4. Sherman is the popcorn kernel that saves the Chagrin Falls popcorn drop on New Year's Eve. So grab them. They'll be, I'm sure, for sale at the popcorn shop. And so that's 2 weeks away. And if you don't have them, now you can get your set, all 4 of them. We'll do a sale for the holidays on my website, apieceofmollysmon.com. So grab your books, please. What do you got going?
I don't know.
Are you binging anything? I'm binging Scandal. Have you seen Scandal?
No, but I've been binging a bunch of stuff.
Oh, I'm obsessed with Scandal. Obsessed with it.
That's got that one lady in it.
Kerry Washington.
Kerry Washington.
Stunning. And the one guy who was the mean guy in Ghost, the bad guy in Ghost.
Don't know.
Yeah. Very, very good. Very scandalous. But you just watch it and you wonder, like, is that shit really going on in not the sleeping with the women, because we do know that's going on, but there's this one group, B something, and they do what the FBI and the CIA don't do. They do the torturing in the ground, deep torturing and cutting your finger off and that kind of stuff. And you just kind of wonder, does that really go on?
Oh, definitely. I think they don't do it inside the continental United States. They take them to Guantanamo Bay or Turkey. They do over there. They
but our people.
Yeah. They're in the room.
And we would be remiss if we didn't say Happy Veterans Day. Thank you, Alex, for your service.
Oh, thanks, Molly.
We're recording it. You're probably not listening to it on we know you're not listening to it, but I can't go without saying Happy Veterans Day, and thank you for your service.
He's a vet too. He was an Army Ranger. He's a badass.
I love that. We'll thank him for his service. Yeah. And then both of you can go eat at Burntwood Tavern or Firebirds today for free. Yes.
I know where I'm going after this.
Yeah. Get that
no steak though.
Oh, their Delmonico steak is the best at Firebirds. Yeah.
What else happened recently? I went to Columbus this weekend and saw Nancy Santilli there, bumped into her.
Seriously?
Yeah, on Saturday. In our hotel. She was staying in our hotel.
And what was she doing there?
That OSBA conference is starting.
Oh, has it been a year already?
Yeah, it has.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Shout out to Nancy.
Yeah, she's awesome. We've got a good episode coming up.
On the schedule.
Haven't recorded yet, but it's going to be baller.
I think we freaked Nellie out a little bit. She was protecting me. She's like, my gosh, this has been scheduled on a day you couldn't do. And I was like, we worked it out. We worked it out. And I'd like to do a shout out to my daughter, Samantha, if I could.
Please.
So she wrote a grant and then got money. And thanks to Walmart, which the Walmart in Eastlake gave her money as well. And she's a special ed teacher in Willoughby, Eastlake. And she started her own, it's called Jefferson Java, because she works at a school out that way. Mm-hmm. And their mascot is their Jefferson is the school. And she did a little coffee cart with her little students, and today it opened and they had 22 orders and they filled them on. It teaches the kids how to count change and pour coffee and business oriented, and just so proud of her.
Nice job, Sam.
Great job, Samantha.
Well done.
Yeah.
How's the grandbabies?
Grandbabies are awesome.
I'm just joking. Obviously, I know they're awesome. You can't turn on Facebook anymore without seeing them first.
Did you see the pictures of them on the fire truck?
I think
yesterday.
So. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm only half joking. I genuinely meant, how are the grandbabies?
You know what? I will tell you, we all, for those of you that know me, I'm obsessed with my job, and it's 24/7 for me. And the grandbabies have grounded me more, and made me realize what's truly important in life, which is hard for a workaholic to see. So that has been lovely. That has been
nice, Molly.
Yeah,
that's lovely.
Yeah,
I have a quote that I like read a script in the morning to get myself remembering what's it. And one of the quotes in there is by this philosopher named von Goethe. It's
Ireland.
Things that matter most must never be at the mercy of things that matter least. Right. So if you start, and the reason I put that in there in the beginning of the day is because, to your point, it's so easy for things to just find their way into your calendar, into your life, into your day, and you know, you focus on stuff. That's what makes you a good manager and a good leader, and you give that all your attention. And a lot of times that involves making the other person happy, which some people just can't ever be happy, right?
Yes.
But you get caught up in other people's dramas throughout the day, you know, taking care of other people. And then you step back at the end of the day and you're like, oh man, I wasn't as grateful today as I could have been for these great things, these things that matter most to me. I didn't even think about those things.
Yeah.
You know?
We had a little girl today. Her name's Maria, and we call her the mascot of the chamber.
Yeah, we've seen Maria.
Yeah, Maria.
Yeah.
Well, she came today with a bag. She's spreading gratefulness today because they had off. And it was a bag full of some brownie mix and just a couple little treats. And it just said, and then it was a card that I'm supposed to fill out of things I'm grateful for. And they were going the whole day and dropping those off at different places. How cool is that?
Yeah.
And shout out to Shannon, the mom, for instilling that in her child. You know, Maria's 6 years old, and, you know, I mean, that's...
Yeah. Well, and that's so true. And there's so many, like, all she has to do is look around and people are talking about, you know, you've got toys that you could be thinking about. You got plastic that you can be buying. Like, there are so many commercial forces trying to attach appreciation to plastic and toys and buying stuff, you know, especially now getting into like the holiday seasons coming up. Right. You know, poor Maria is going to be bombarded with reminders every channel she looks at. YouTube, man. Maya one day just decided that she was going to, good for her, like spell her name Maya on YouTube to see what comes up. Boy. Do you know there is a show about a little girl named Maya and it's produced by her mom. It's a YouTube show. You know what they do on this show? They just freaking open toys, but they're so huge. They're like, are they reviewing the toys, or it's videos of them playing with toys, and there's so many downloads that Toys R Us and Mattel are sending this family all these toys all the time, and that's all they do. Is good for them. It's make believe, and you know, but there's so many little kids, like millions of downloads, millions of streams, just watching them. Well, play that's with what toys. The younger kid, that's all they hope to be, is a YouTube sensation. There was just a statistic about that. It was, where did I hear that? It was, oh, that's right. There was a recent survey in China where they asked like 20,000 kids what you want to be when you grow up. And they were engineer, scientist. Oh, the number one was astronaut, right? They asked 20,000 kids in the U.S. what you want to be when you grow up. Do you know what it was?
I don't even want to know. A YouTube star.
A YouTube star.
Unbelievable.
Dude,
we're screwed. I'm moving to Canada.
You know,
no,
who's
I'm
not
not.
screwed
I'm kidding.
is
I love
China.
the United States. I love the United States.
Yeah. I mean, that's why.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really
sad.
It's a sad
it is
thing.
sad.
Mm-hmm.
Sad.
Anywho.
So,
have you been to Columbus recently?
I think the last time I was in Columbus was when we went for that seminar or that whatever it was.
That was a year ago. Yeah. That's short north. That's where it's at.
Yeah.
So Saturday was apparently Parents' Weekend, and short north was just elbow to elbow, parent, child drinking together.
Nice.
All over the place.
I never was that parent.
You never went down for Parents' Weekend?
I went down for Parents' Weekend, but I didn't go to
boozing?
the parties, and no, I just no.
Yeah,
I
it was.
wasn't that parent. My kids had to wait until they were 21 to drink in front of me. I mean, I knew they drank.
Yeah.
But not in. I wouldn't allow it in front of me.
That's good.
I don't know.
I guess.
It's just the way I am. It is a rule.
If you're
going
to do it behind my back, Emily.
It is a law.
Yeah.
Last I checked.
So we did that. I gave a speech. Oh, you know what, man?
So what were you there for? I'm sorry.
So the Ohio Auto Dealers the Ohio Independent Auto Dealers Association had their annual conference, and Nick Weiss and Mark Turner and I all went down there, and we gave speeches. We gave talks teaching people how to not get sued. Last week, I was the guest on 2 other podcasts.
Really?
Yeah, they're coming out. Well, folks, you can hear them now. One is the Ohio Society of CPAs has a podcast, and I was talking about Cover My Six there. And then the other one, Apple Growth Partners. You know those guys?
I do. Matt Sila?
I don't know Matt.
Okay. Matt just did a succession workshop with the chamber last week.
Oh, that's right. There was
Your
like
buddy,
estate
Henry
planning.
Grenda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I saw that. Yeah. So they have their own podcast, and it's called Sliced. It's non-competitive with us. So
Apple,
I would say,
Slice. Cute,
I would say, folks, go ahead and listen to that one. Right.
Yeah.
No. And they do a really good job. I mean, so, their CEO, Chuck, and, Brittany, Chuck and Brittany are the hosts of this podcast, and it was really cool. So listen to Sliced and listen to the Ohio Society of CPAs podcast, and you'll hear yours truly on there.
Put that on our thing.
Yeah. Let's talk about Lee Stacey.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you remember our good friend Drew Tewksbury?
I do.
Episode number way long ago.
Yes, I do.
So Drew and I have known each other for a number of years. He was our insurance agent when working at his prior job, whose name will not be mentioned here because I want everybody to know about where Drew and Lee work now, which is McGowan Insurance. And that's how I met Lee, was after an introduction from Drew. So Lee, I don't know if I'd call him Drew's boss. I guess he is, because Lee runs the ship over there. He drives the boat. So Lee is the managing director, CEO, and president of McGowan Insurance, which is a really great insurance brokerage and agency. That's, you know what, I'm going to ask him a question about that. I always say brokerage and then I say agency, but I think there's a difference between the two.
And why is somebody a president and a CFO?
Well, he's CEO
and president. Like, wouldn't president cover CEO? Or wouldn't you be one or the other?
You know what, Molly? These are great questions for Lee. But here's the thing about Lee. All right, here, let me tell you some stuff about Lee.
Please.
Lee was an Army Ranger. You know what Army Rangers do, Molly? Do
they ride horses?
Ass. No, they're professional ass kickers.
Okay, I love it. I love that.
surviving Ranger School is extremely difficult. You go in with a class of like 100, and their sole purpose is to break the class down to like 10 and make the others wash out, make the others leave and quit, right? So they basically abuse you in Ranger School until one at a time they watch your class go and ring the bell. So it's like...
So is it a division of the Army?
Yeah. It's like the Special Forces. I guess I don't know if it's still like... If it's... I think the Green Berets and the Rangers are the same group. I think they are.
Put it on the list. Sounds like we have a lot to ask him.
Lee is definitely a badass. And aside from running McGowan Insurance, he also rides a really badass Harley. And he does all kinds of charitable work. He's on the board of the United Cerebral Palsy Association. And he's on the board of the Erie County Conservation League. He's held a number of significant professional posts in the past. Look at this. 75th Ranger Regiment. Team leader, senior machine gunner. Damn, Ollie, he messed stuff up. Airborne School, Ranger School, Jungle Warfare School.
Oh my gosh.
43 parachute jumps.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a badass. No more appropriate guest on Veterans Day.
Perfect.
Than Lee. I will also say, having known Lee for a few years now, he's a really great he's a great thinker. He's got a great personality. Every time I meet with him just to bounce ideas off him, I fill a notebook. He's just a really inspirational, really positive dude. And I can't wait to talk to him. So let's bring him in.
Let's do it.
Let's do it, Molly.
Let's do it.
What else are we gonna do? We're gonna sit here shooting the shit.
Let's do it.
Let's bring it.
You know what?
All right.
Bring him in.
Lee Stacey, how are you?
Alex Kurtzberg.
That is true. That is my name. Lee, you are a man who wears a lot of hats and has worn a lot of hats throughout your life. True or false?
I'll give that a true.
Yeah. We were going through some of them a few moments ago, and we will go through them again.
I wasn't going through them because I didn't get my paperwork. But
oh, man. Hold on. Dang it. You want me to go get it for you? Let me go get it for you. Hold on.
All right. Thank you.
See, this is the benefit of having a really good producer.
I had asked him to give me my paperwork before, and he forgot. Are you Irish?
I am, yes.
I could tell.
I am. I am the product of two horny Irish teenagers in the backseat of a Pontiac in 1966. So I was actually given up for adoption. So my surname is English, but I actually hail from two extremely Irish families.
Wow. And how did you have that level of information about your adopted or your?
My mom and dad, I'm the oldest of three, and my mom and dad adopted three kids through Catholic Social Services, and there was a nun there whose name was Sister Claudia, God rest her soul, great lady. She advocated for child adoption in the 1960s, and they were very open about giving information to my parents, who in turn did the same for me.
Wow. And have you ever met your parents?
Yes, I have. It is a 12-pack of beer story, but the condensed version is that when my wife and I got married in 1994, we started our family 2 years later, and when my wife was pregnant, she's a therapist. She's a social worker, and we lived in Michigan at the time, and she was aware of laws that had changed, and Michigan made the transition in 90 or 91 to from a closed record state into what is called a confidential intermediary state. So when those laws changed, my wife realized she had a baby growing in her belly that could have all kinds of issues that we knew nothing about because we didn't know anything about my lineage. So she came to me and she said, hey, the law's changed and we're having a baby, and it may be a good idea to find out more about your birth family for medical reasons, if nothing else. And I said, well, yeah, I've always been curious, so let's give it a stroke. And found my birth mother and met a lot of my maternal relatives that way.
Wow.
So yeah, it's pretty. My wife says when she retires, she's going to write a book about it.
Wow, because my husband also was adopted through Catholic Church. No, he was Geauga County, I believe, but has never. Does Ohio have that law?
I don't even know. We went through this whole process when we were up in Michigan. This would have been, we didn't move here until 2005. So this is all
look into that.
10-year history.
We had, same situation when I was pregnant, we were looking into trying to figure out a little bit more information, and the county did send there's like a health thing that they can send you.
Non-identifying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and I think I've told you this story, they whited out. And instead of copying it and sending us the copy of the redacted, they sent us the actual whited out information. So we just sat there
and scraped it all off.
Yeah. So he knew his mother's name, her birthday, more than he was ready to find out. Like it was a lot for him.
Can we take a minute for this?
Yeah, I've got more. I actually have more questions about this. We are not getting off this topic for a bit. So.
And he found out his birth name and everything.
You'll get this will especially hit home with you, I think. I'll give you the really Reader's Digest version. I hired a confidential intermediary who found my biological mother in about 48 hours, and she resides in Pennsylvania. And I was encouraged to write a letter of introduction, which I did, which she immediately answered. And all identifying information was purged, and the addresses were actually sent through the confidential intermediary, so we didn't know where each other was. She said, hey, I'm in Pennsylvania, but I didn't know where. And we exchanged letters back and forth. I said, hey, I'm obviously, at the time I was 27 years old, and I'm married, and I'm having a baby, and, blah, blah, blah. And after about 3 letter exchanges back and forth, I just figured, to heck with it, and I wrote her a very detailed letter, and I said, this is my name. This is how tall I am. This is how much I weigh. This is what, and my reason, my raison d'etre, if you will, for actually engaging with her so aggressively was to give her some relief from the burden I know she probably had carried most of her life. So I started out by saying, I was an altar boy. I had a paper route. I was in Cub Scouts. I was adopted by a great family. I had a wonderful childhood in a small town. I played on a champion high school football team. I served in the military honorably, put myself through college. This is, so guess what? I turned out okay. So thank you for giving me life. And thank you for doing what you did to give me an opportunity in the world. And I spent pages telling her this story. And of course, it was edited several times over by my social work wife. And when she received that, she then responded to me and said, this is my name, this is what I do, and da-da-da. And I come to find out she was a published author and had written 6 books. One of them, her biggest seller, she was a nonfiction writer, but she wrote mostly about the history of women in politics in the Northeast. And she did like a summary mini autobiography of the first 10 female senators in the United States. But her real job was she was an image maker and a speech writer for a guy named Matt Ryan, who was the 18-year Speaker of the House for the state of Pennsylvania for the House of Reps. And you can tell in her writing, she writes beautifully, and she wrote this letter. But she said, listen, please promise me. I've gone out on a limb here and identified myself to you, so please limit your contact to me.
Well, I'm sorry. Wait, you said to her to limit her contact?
No, she said to me.
She said to you.
In a letter. She said, limit your contact with me. Please don't reach out to the man listed as your father on your birth certificate. There are complications that could arise from that. And I felt, and still am to this day, almost 25 years later, I'm grateful that she even responded to me because she didn't need to.
Right.
So I've honored that even to this day, and that's a whole nother story. But
so you never found, or
well,
you
no. Here's the fun part. So that's all the queuing up. So she wrote me this letter, and I wrote. And my wife at the time is probably 6 months pregnant, and then I wrote her this letter. I said, my wife is due on July 2nd. this is all about my wife. This is what she does, And then my wife told me, no pictures. Don't send any pictures yet. That's not right. That's not right. You'll blow people away. No, don't. I said, but I'm handsome. I have to let her see what a stud I am.
Yes.
And she says, no, just get off your high horse there. And just, So the letter stopped with the last letter that I sent to her. And it was like in, let's say, March. And I said, my wife is due on July 2nd. Well, the week before my wife was due, she comes from this enormous family in northern Indiana. It's a farming community. And when you go to a reunion with her family, you show up and there's 150 people, 100 of which are farmers. And you ride around on hay trucks and you do a bonfire and a pig roast. And they're some of the greatest people in the world.
I would be invited to that party.
Wonderful people. But I admittedly, I roll up in my BMW and everyone else has got a truck and, and I'm the city boy, and I can't remember everybody's names. So I meet all these people. I pretend to remember who they are. And, so then we go home. Well, a week later, and my wife hated that reunion because she was miserable because she
get the baby out.
She went from 128 to 175 pounds with her first pregnancy. And she was, and our first child was a big boy. And July 2nd comes along. Well, her OB-GYN had been telling her, I'm not seeing any signs that you're going into labor. And we had an old school OB-GYN who did not believe in inducing. So he said, honey, we're going to wait it out. We're going to wait it out. And it was a Saturday, July 2nd, 1996. And we're at home and my wife is laying on the couch and she's miserable. And the phone rings and I pick the phone up and I say, hello. And there's a female on the other end of the line and says, hello, Lee? And I said, yes, speaking. Who's this, please? Oh, Lee, it's Jean. And I said, oh, how you doing? She goes, I'm fine, thank you. I'm calling because today is July 2nd, and as we've previously communicated with each other that this is Nikki's due date. I said, oh, yeah, hang on, she's right here. Let me get her for you.
So you have no idea who you're talking to?
It never made the connection.
Oh, my gosh.
So I come around the corner. My wife is glaring at me like I do not want to talk to anybody on the phone. Get this baby out of me. And I gesture with the phone.
Here's
and
Jean.
I say, honey. And she looks at me. She goes, who is it? Who is it? And I said, it's Jean, honey. Jean? And she looks at me and she kind of does the eye-rolling mental Rolodex. My wife is brilliant. She's like 150 IQ, very, very smart woman. And she said, and all of a sudden she locks eyes with me and she says, it's Jean, you moron. It's Jean.
Oh my
And she says, I don't remember doing this, but she says, I put my hand on the wall to steady myself. And I picked the phone up and I said, I'm really sorry. Is this? And she says, yes, Lee, it's me.
And this is the first time you've ever spoken to her.
Ever talked to her. Ever.
Oh, wow.
And she had been calling because of the letter I had written 3 months ago. So we have
just calling to check up to see if the baby had
exactly come. Because at that point in time, this would have been her first biological grandchild, and she was, I think, and it's been a really weird 25 years. You think she wants to connect, then she does, and I've seen her 5 times, 6 times over the years. But I ended up, and there's 2 quick vignettes that I'll give you into a glimpse that I've gotten the biggest reaction out of people when I've told this story to. So in chatting with her, she said, we came to the conclusion that her older brother, she is the second eldest of 5 children, and her older brother, who was a freshman in college when she had me, knew of the situation. She was sent to a Catholic all-girls school on the other side of the state, homework for wayward mothers. She did laundry in the basement of a nunnery and basically waited out until my delivery happened, and then she tried to have reentry with her family that had disowned her. They are all red-haired, green-eyed, bad teeth, horse thief, and Irishman. They look very ethnically correct. So there's 2 quick stories that I think that I get a reaction from people on. The first one is when I'm talking with her, I said, she tells me, she goes, well, my brother lives 30 miles from you. And I said, oh my God. I said, I have this enormous head. I have this very unique look to me. I've never seen anybody that looks like me. Would you mind terribly if I reached out to him? And she said, well, I don't know. Let me call him and find out. So she ends up calling him and she sends me an email and he says, yeah, have him call me. So I ring him up and I won't use last names here because it, if this obviously gets circulated, I think I'd want to protect his privacy. But I called him at work and he picks the phone up and he goes, yeah, Bob, says his last name. And I said, Bob, this is Lee Stacey. He goes, what can I do for you, Mr. Stacey? And I said, well, I was given your name and number from your sister, Jean. And he goes, oh, wait a minute. Let me close my door. Oh, my God, don't go anywhere. And he closes his door. And we chat, and he's just a gem of a guy. And we agree. I told him, I said, I've never met anybody that looks like me. Would you mind meeting with me? I'm not looking for, a relationship, and I'm not looking for money. I'm curious about my background. And he says, absolutely, I think it'd be a great idea. And he says, may I bring my wife with me? And I said, well, sure. I said, it's kind of a curious request. And he goes, well, my wife is your biological mother's best friend from childhood. I married the girl down the street. So
oh my gosh.
She knows of you from the point of time of conception on. And I thought, well, sure. So I go home, we set the date, and it just so happens that my wife was out of town that day and she couldn't attend. And man, she was ticked off about that. But so I ended up, and we agreed to meet, and he suggested, let's meet at a mall. And I said, well, there's this new mall by my house. I said, there's a sunglass hut on the first floor. There's a bench right in front of the sunglass hut. Let's meet there. How about Sunday, 1:00? And he goes, okay, I'll meet you there. And I said, well, I plan on bringing my baby book and photos of me growing up. He goes, yeah, absolutely. I'll bring a bunch of photos and we can have a chat. So I show up and I walk in and I walk through I'm like 10 minutes early, and I walk through the mall and I come up to the bench, and there's a man seated on the bench. And he's kind of he's got his elbows on his legs, and he's kind of looking off to the side, and he's by himself. And as he turns his face, I look at him. And I stopped dead in my tracks because it's me in 20 years.
Oh, my gosh.
Spitting. It just so happens that out of all of my biological mother's biological siblings, I look the most like him.
Wow.
And he looks up at me, and I look at him, and we just freeze because he has a daughter and no sons. And he stands up, and I walk slowly up to him, and I hold my hand out to shake it, and I said, you must be Bob. And he bats my hand away and clamps onto me in a bear hug, and he starts sobbing.
Dude, you're about to make Molly cry, just so you know.
And I'm holding this man, and I'm a big guy. You can't tell from the recording, but at the time I'm like 6'3", 260, and I'm holding onto this man who's sobbing. And his wife was in the bathroom, and she comes out of the bathroom, and she sees me holding Bob, who's sobbing on my shoulder, and she shrieks, screams, and runs at us. And everybody in the mall turns and looks at us. And she wraps her arms around both of us. But my head is opposite her, and she hasn't seen me yet. And she pushes her husband's face away and turns my face towards hers, grabs me by the ears, and she goes, oh, my God, Bob, it's you.
Wow.
So that was the one little vignette. The other thing that I'll tell you that's kind of funny is Bob and his wife, Maureen, have a wonderful daughter who at the time was swimming in college, and she was captain of the swim team. And she came home. As college kids do, on breaks and things like that. Well, after we met Bob and his wife Maureen, we started exchanging Christmas cards. And so about a year goes by, and I've got to keep everything, on the down low because of what my biological mother requested. And we exchanged Christmas cards, and we've always. Our Christmas cards are kind of famous in our community in our friend community, because we take pictures of our dogs with our family, and we had Mastiffs for 20 years, and we now have English Bulldogs, and everybody rants and raves about, I love the photos of your dogs. So we sent them a picture. It's me, my wife, our 2 kids, and our 2 Mastiffs, and it was a great Christmas card photo. And so what does Bob do? He sticks it on his refrigerator. Sure. Takes it out of the 200 Christmas cards he has and sticks it on the refrigerator. His daughter comes home. Now, the sidebar, his daughter is extremely close to her 2 cousins. Her 2 cousins are my biological brothers that don't know I exist.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And they've been boxed out because their father is not amenable to me being communicating with the family.
Right. You're the Antichrist.
I'm the Antichrist. So their daughter comes home, and she rolls in the door from college, drops her gym bag on the floor from the swim team, walks over to open the refrigerator, and she goes, Mom, who's this? I mean, we're obviously related to him, but I've never seen him before.
Oh, my gosh.
So, this is welcome to my world.
And have you ever met your mother?
I have. We actually made a date. She had to fly to Michigan and tell a fib to her husband and say that she was visiting a sick friend. And she and I agreed again to meet in a mall. And my wife, my wife went to college on a pageant scholarship. So she spent several years judging pageants after that. So it just so happens that this is another. When I met Uncle Bob, she was at a pageant scholarship judging in Indiana. And this particular weekend, she was judging the Midwest Finals. So again, she couldn't come. She was extremely upset about it. And again at a mall. And this time I've got my son. And he's 8 months old. And I'm the big burly guy rolling through the mall with this stroller. And we met in the middle of the mall, and I saw her from like 100 feet away. I'd seen pictures. I knew what she looked like. And she turned, and we locked eyes. And she's a very elegant, poised woman wearing a Donna Karan suit. And I walk up, and she immediately tears just start rolling down her face. Wow. And she clamped onto me. And I clamped onto her too. And I was, like I say, 27, 28 at the time. And you know how babies can tell things are going on. And my son, who was 8 months old, he saw that daddy was crying, and he started crying himself. So then he became the center of attention, and she turned to her first biological grandchild ever. And I didn't touch him for the next 3 hours. She had him, she fed him, and so we went to I think it was like a Chili's or something like that, and we sat and we drank like 7 pitchers of iced tea and
Lee,
just talked about life.
So you're 22 when you first when you hired the dude and you made contact with her for the first time and you're writing letters.
27.
You're 27.
Yep.
What was the story that you had heard about why she gave you up for adoption before you heard it from her?
Just what my parents had told me. They were open and honest with us. And my mom, my mom's goes to mass twice a week, Power Catholic, and she told us what she knew, which wasn't very much. And the story that she told us, which I think is probably an age-appropriate, suitable explanation for a small child, was, I am your mom, but you didn't grow in my belly. And the woman who actually gave birth to you, her life just wasn't right to be able to raise you. So we really wanted a baby, and it worked out for everybody.
So, okay. And then I was really keying into how when you started the letter writing with her, it was because you had really just hopeful and positive
well, they were having the baby and they wanted to know
right. It all came from a very positive place, is what I was trying to say. Did you, prior to that, though, have any resentment? Did you have any?
I would like to know that too, because and did you get closure? With that resentment afterwards, like, did you feel like you were abandoned, or
like in your teenage years? Like, what is there resentment there, or is there?
I think that's a logical question to ask. I think in my situation, I was very fortunate because I ended up in a good place, and I think had I not been in a good place, that probably would have fostered more of an environment to harbor resentment. In my instance, my biggest concern when we started this whole thing was offending my mother. And my mom, as I know her, my adoptive mom.
Got it.
Now you have to understand, I have a foot in height and 150 pounds on my mother. She's an itty bitty teeny tiny. She looks like a munchkin from the Wizard of Oz. She's tiny, but she is fierce. And
that's an interesting dynamic, though, not wanting to hurt her feelings by going to look for your biological mom.
I've heard that from my husband. I could totally see that.
Yeah.
I sat her down whenever we were up visiting. And I sat her down. It was just her and I, and we were watching. I remember clearly we were watching Leno, and it was just she and I. And I said, "Mom, I want to tell you something that's going on." I said, "This is something that we've started. We don't have to finish it, but I want you to know that if you're even a little bit uncomfortable with this, that we won't do it." And so I said, "This is the deal. We're looking for my biological parents. We've established contact. There's letter writing. This is before I'd actually met them." And I'll never forget what my mom said to me. She, all 5 foot tall of her, all 100 pounds of her, she's sitting back in her little recliner lazy boy chair watching Leno. And she looked over me and she said, "You and I both know who changed all those poopy diapers. You and I both know who sat through all those Little League games. You and I both know who made all those." I ate these grilled cheese sandwiches by the stack when I was in high school, for football to gain weight. You and I both know who made all those sandwiches during football. And you and I both know who had to wear that damn jersey number 69, which embarrassed the hell out of me in the stands, as your mother. We both know whose car you wrecked 3 times before you graduated from high school. Nobody will ever take that away from me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, if you do find her, let's all go to lunch, because I want to tell that woman what a pain in the ass you were as a teenager to raise.
Oh,
That hasn't happened yet. But
This is I've got to end this part because I have like 80 more questions that I want to ask you, but
we
never
haven't even
This is a
Yeah.
touched
like
any of it.
we're gonna have to bring
lock
you
the
back.
doors, get a bottle of scotch.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the whole thing. I've told you probably half of everything, but
Yeah, no,
Wow.
well, I'm a huge, you and I have talked about this, Lee. I'm such a huge student of human psychology, and I have layers of questions for you. Like, I mean, but we've got to move on.
yeah, that's
We
not
gotta
what we're here
move-
for. I get it. All right.
I got it.
So here, our good friend Drew Tewksbury and I have spent a lot of time talking about careers and working environments and business models and leadership models. And one thing that is striking to me about how you are described by someone who I think on the food chain might be considered a subordinate of yours, right? Is that I don't think that Drew considers himself a subordinate of yours. And I certainly don't. It seems like you've done a really good job making your employees feel like you're partners rather than your subordinates. At least that's the impression I have. And I can't remember if that's a direct quote or if that's just the way I have inferred just listening to him talk about what it's like to work with you. But well, let me ask you: is that intentional? Is that a fair characterization of how you view your relationship with your employees?
I will respond first of all by saying that that's probably the highest compliment you could pay me, to know that people think of me that way, because that is intended.
Yeah.
The industry that we're in doesn't tend to gravitate towards a servant leadership model. And I've been working very hard for a long time to try to build that kind of a model in our operation, so that if I go into a meeting with 5 of my people, and I run the place, so I'm the boss for everybody. If I go into a meeting with a client or an underwriting team and I'm negotiating a deal on behalf of one of our clients, and I've got 5 of my team members in on the meeting, if we finish that meeting and the other side of the table doesn't know that I'm the boss, I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
That's actually success, because that means I've got the right people on my team. So yes, It is intentional, and I think the world of Drew, as you know, and we've worked really, really well together.
Tell me what you think about this idea that I think about this all the time, about how every business relationship is really an emotional one first, right? You don't think about who to buy from, who to work for, who to sell to. You don't get to the transactional business part until you get past an emotional threshold first, right? Is this somebody that I feel some kind of kinship with? Is this somebody that I want to continue the relationship with, even if it's like a totally distant, like buying something from Amazon kind of transaction? I believe strongly that there is an emotional threshold you have to get to, and usually there's a trust element to it. Do you think that there is that emotional sense that people have with you, that you have with them? About, do people approach working with you? Do you approach working with them on an emotional level?
I would say that would be preferred. It isn't always the case. I think that if there is an emotional, personal connection, you strike a higher probability of retaining that client, possibly through bad times. In our business, and I think that our business model lends itself to some unique peculiarities with regard to interrelationships with the clients.
Wait, what does that mean?
Let me back up. We sell a very expensive product that people hate to buy, and they hate to buy it, but they have to buy it. They hate to buy it, they have to buy it, and hope to God they never have to use it. Commercial insurance, if you look, based on the Risk and Insurance Management Society, large corporations will spend 3 to 3.5% of their top line on a family of products that we actually sell and advocate for. It can be an even higher number in high-risk industries and smaller companies. So our clients are people that the relationship they have with us may be the only value they get for the premium dollars that they're paying if they don't have to use the product, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's not like the thing now, and that all sounds, in the Alex Gertzberg world of, human psychology, you're thinking, oh my God, that's a fertile growing ground for relationship development. The thing to remember, though, is that in our industry, people tend to commoditize the products. Mm-hmm. And that's both good and bad. It's bad because there are good insurance brokers and not so good insurance brokers out there. And if we're doing our job correctly, you have a kick-ass program that is better than your peer group. A lot of people just think, I need insurance. I've got to go buy, lawyers have to buy professional liability. People have to buy auto. They have to buy general liability. They have to buy directors and officers. And as long as they check the boxes and buy each one of those products, they think that they're good. Well, the policies aren't all created the same. And I can't tell you how many times we run into sales opportunities where you'll have a company owner who has a great relationship with his agent. And, we try to get in front of them and they say, no, thanks. We've got, everything's fine. And we say, well, how do you know everything's fine? Let us take a look at what you've got. And if you are fine, I'm a big boy. I'll tell you you're in good shape and I'll walk away. And you find out that it's really not that they think that they're fine. It's that they really like their agent. Mm-hmm. So many times we can be boxed out of an opportunity when our competition is an inferior performer to us, but they've locked that relationship down. And
they're also probably trusting that relationship and don't want to disturb it by looking into it because they like the agent. But
trusting the relationship, buying a product that they probably have never used.
Yes, and that's scary because, you agents have a whole bunch of friends that they're selling it to, and it's good to get it looked at a little bit, right?
Yeah. By the way,
I just paid mine today. By the way, our officers and
your
whatever.
Yeah.
Before I forget, Molly and I, Molly's way smarter than I am, but I couldn't answer this question either. Broker or agent? What's the difference?
That's a great question, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to answer it to your satisfaction. Technically speaking, I was just at a conference last week and we were talking about this. As a client, you want a broker. The sad fact is that our industry is not regulated federally, it's regulated at the state level.
Right.
So you have 50 insurance commissioners in the U.S. that all have 50 different sets of rules that every broker and insurance carrier has to live by. And of those 50, I think at last count, 34 of them were elected officials. So they know nothing. And the ones that are professionally managed, the hallmark is the state of New York. The insurance department of the state of New York has a couple thousand employees. I don't know if it's 1,000 or 2,000 or what, but it's a lot. And they're professionally managed, and they're kind of viewed as, if there was such thing as federal oversight in the insurance industry, it would be the New York Insurance Bureau. A broker is, by definition, supposed to be looking out for the best interest of the client. In actuality, if you look at the way that all the contracts are written, we are agents. It's the unfortunate legal truth. We are agents to the carrier. And we disclose that fully up front. And I've always been a big fan of transparency. I always assume that my clients are at least as intelligent as I am, if not more. And I'll tell them flat out when we present options to them, we'll say, here's option A, B, and C. And oh, by the way, just so you know, we are an agent for the carrier in each situation, and this is our commission rate. So you may save money by buying this, but we may be getting paid a lower commission rate. Not all agents do that. I mean, some agents will keep that close to the vest and not disclose it.
Wait, so are there true brokers anymore? Because I think that the way you've just described it is every insurance agent I know.
I would hold myself out as a broker. I would tell you, Alex, I'm always going to have your best interests at heart. If you look at the legal contracts, I'm acting as an agent representing the carriers.
Right. Okay. I understand.
Interesting. But my other question was, why president and CEO?
That was the other question. Managing director, CEO, and president at McGowan Insurance.
Yeah, we've kind of...
doesn't president just umbrella it all? Or
we're
CEO?
We're a very complicated company.
Okay.
The firm that I actually work for, a dynastic family trust. and it is the McGowan Family Trust. It's on its third or fourth generation, I think, now. And we're a pretty good-sized organization, and we have roughly 15 different companies that operate as subsidiaries of the parent company, McGowan and Company. I actually manage the only unit of the 15 that is client-facing, that takes care of clients. So when I first hired in, each one of the business units had their own president and CEO. And I think that over time, as we grew, we suddenly had 10 presidents and CEOs, and it got confusing to some of our trading partners. Not necessarily the clients, but the trading partners. You know, the head guy from Travelers, the guy for Ohio, his name is Jim Nestide, and he would call up and he'd say, "Lee, are you still in charge up there?" Well, yeah, Jim. What's the problem?
What are you hearing?
I just saw I saw 2 announcements that you. So what we ended up doing was, everybody that was operating a subsidiary at McGowan, we took the title of managing director, and the chairman and CEO position is with Tom McGowan, who's the guy that I report to, who heads up the McGowan Family Trust. So if you look at my business card now, it will say managing director, and that's how I hold myself out.
Molly, I went and visited Lee one time, and he gave me a tour of the place, and we walked into Tom McGowan's office. Do you remember that movie Big, where Tom Hanks just plays with toys all day?
Yes.
That's what Tom's office looked like. He had this, he's
a
Star
child
Wars
at heart.
There was
Very
a
much
giant Millennium Falcon hanging from the ceiling over here. There's like an R2D2 or C3PO thing over there. That dude likes.
Where would I find this office?
It's on the west side.
Not that I'm going to come.
We're in Fairview Park.
Visit.
Fairview Park.
Park.
Yep.
Okay.
We've got roughly 130 employees. We're the second largest employer in Fairview Park, only behind the school district.
Gotcha.
Well, so let's talk a little bit more about your leadership style. I know that servant leadership is a concept that's important to you. So let's talk about that. I want to hear your definition of it and how you practice it.
Nice open-ended question, Alex. Way to pass the ball.
I want to take a break. I'm going to go smoke outside.
Yeah, you hear a lot of people talking about servant leadership. I've kind of I think I've forged my own version of it over the years. I've tried to take pages out of the playbook of people whose leadership style I respected and that I responded favorably to over my career. I can tell you that there's a guy in my past who is he's currently, at least at last I heard, he was the managing director of the Marsh office in Denver. It's a guy named Don Holmes. And everybody loves Don. He's brilliant. He's a student of the industry. Clients loved him. My wife used to joke around all the time that I should wear a bracelet, the "What Would Jesus Do?" There should be a "What Would Don Do?" bracelet that I should wear, because there were times when I would come home and I'd have a decision. I'd be, the mantle of leadership weighs heavily on the shoulders of the righteous. And I would come home and my wife would see, "What's going on?" And I'd say, "Well, I got a decision to make about this." And she'd say, "Well, what would Don do?" And the funny thing is I had a chance to talk to Don a few years ago, and he and I had to connect on an unrelated incident, and I hadn't talked to the guy in probably 15 years. And we got on the phone. He's like, "Oh my gosh, Lee, I remember when your wife was, my kids are in their 20s now. I remember when your wife was pregnant with your kids." And I said, "Don, I don't know if I ever had a chance to thank you, but you played a really big role in me developing my leadership style. And I don't know if I ever told you that. And I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate that. And I appreciate you and everything that you're about." And he's on the other end of the phone. He's speechless. He's like, I don't know what to say. And I said, "Well, I've tried to model a lot of my leadership style after the way that I know you would handle certain situations." And he said, "Lee, I don't know that I've ever been paid a higher compliment." So he's a terrific guy. And so there's guys like Don in my life. There are guys that, from my military days, that I'd look at their leadership style. There's people whose leadership I didn't care for. I didn't like their style, and I would kind of put that on the back shelf and say, I'm not going to be that guy. When I eventually, hopefully, run an organization, there's certain things I'm going to do and not do. And I found that the common thread that I noticed between the people whose leadership style I appreciated was that they, at one level or another, embraced a servant leadership posture. They judged by results and not by efforts. They backed their people 1,000%. I have been known to fire a client if a client gets abusive with one of my staff members. I have no problem doing that. And I have no problem calling them up and telling them why. You're not going to talk to my people like that. My people you don't deserve to be my client. You don't deserve to have my people servicing on your account. So we're going to find you another broker. Consider our relationship terminated on Friday at noon or whatever. I've done that a couple times.
I think I've heard that story from Drew, by the way. Yeah, it's pretty,
Yeah, I think, he was involved with one of them. So, yeah.
Lee, when I think of servant leadership, I think that the story you just gave a few minutes ago about trying to disappear from the conversation, right? So that nobody even realizes that you're there, right? You're letting everybody else kind of take the lead, right? And shine. That to me really embodies what I consider servant leadership to be, which is removing your ego, right?
Well put.
If you can,
and that's not easy to do sometimes.
No, I think it's almost impossible to do well consistently.
If you're an alpha dog, and you have drive in your DNA, it's difficult to do.
Yeah, well, and especially when I mean, like, all three of us are bosses, right? All three of us have gotten to a point in our careers where we have people who rely on us for direction, instruction, right? And we are where the buck stops, right? And the strategies and habits and tactics that it took to get to this place, right, don't lend themselves to ego removal very easily, right? You had to hustle and claw your way to this place. And so checking yourself and checking your ego at the door, I don't know if, like, I've got to remind myself to do that. Do you find it to be natural? Do you find it to be easy? Do you find it to be automatic?
No, it's hard. I do have an ego the size of Montana. I think I'm a pretty driven, bright guy, and I will tell any prospective client when I talk to him, I said, if you're looking for an insurance broker, there's nobody in the business that's better at it than me. My team will blow anybody else out of the water. I look with that. I mean, you're a client of mine, and I'm going to look you in the eye right now and tell you that you're in a great place. And you're a friend, so you're going to be taken care of always. Setting the ego aside is very challenging, and I think the more driven that you are, I'm at a bit of a disadvantage or advantage, depending on your perspective, because my industry in particular does not tend to breed leadership well. What they do, and I suppose I've read a lot, and I think this is true and accurate across all industries. The people that get put into management positions are not always the people that should be put in management positions. So in a sales environment, for example, usually you'll have the top sales guy that will get promoted to run the operation, and he may be a horrible leader. He may be so egotistical that he can't see past his own shadow. He may not care one lick about people development, about all he wants to do is make a lot of money and drive a flashy car and be the rock star that everybody worships at the end of the day. And that's great. And I think one of the mistakes that our industry has done over time is they've looked at people like that and just automatically promoted them without really doing an inventory of what their skill set is and what somebody in a leadership position in my industry would look like if you could whip out a report card and say they're going to be successful if A, B, C, and D. So I will tell you, while it is hard to set the ego aside, and I can't tell you how many times I struggle with that. I'll give you a couple examples if you want, but in my industry, it is easy to stand out as a servant leader because there aren't many of us. There are people that embrace it, because a lot of these guys, I mean, I can't tell you talk about the difficulty of being able to, keep your mouth shut and let other people. I am that guy. When you get into a meeting and, you see there'll be 8 people in the meeting and there's something going on, and I have the answer. I know the answer. I've done this 5 times, and I had 2 clients last year that had this exact same situation. I know how to solve it, and I have to just grab myself and just push myself down in the chair and say, all right, your people will figure this out.
Yeah.
And if they end up running astray, then this isn't the proper forum to talk to them about it. Maybe we have a strategy meeting afterwards, and I say, look, I don't know if this is going to work for you or not, but if you'll give me a minute, let me tell you what happened to me last year with this other client. Let me share with you what my experience was, and if that looks like something that you're going to find useful when adjudicating this client situation, then take a nugget of wisdom away from it, and if not, fine, and see how that goes.
So this is where my ADD has taken us down a rabbit hole. Let's get back to basics. Servant leadership means to you. What? Finish the sentence. Servant leadership means
emphasizing the success of your team.
Okay. And give some concrete examples. Right? You've already given the example of trying to disappear into the wallpaper at meetings and letting people come up with the answers on their own, right? Can you think of anything else that just on a day-to-day basis embodies, exemplifies servant leadership for you?
Probably the most challenging aspect for me has been trying to figure out how to effectively ask open-ended questions that allows other people to come to conclusions they wouldn't have otherwise come to. So you're leading them, but you're not telling them. So what I tend to tell people is that I am more apt to ask them what they need than to tell them what I need. And I figure if I can do that on a daily basis, I struggle with this sometimes, but I'll walk up to somebody who may be a rank and file employee, they may be a manager of one of the units that rolls up to me, and I may just stop by and say, "How's it going? How am I doing as your boss? What can I do for you today? What do you have going on here that I can help you with? Is there anything that I can do to add value to what it is you're trying to do here?"
Yeah. We did this exercise here that I was really hoping would catch on, but nobody, I suggested that we ought to do it, and I went first. And the exercise was to get a pen and paper and write down on a scale of 1 to 10, how do they view my relationship with them? 10 being exceptional and not able to be improved, and 1 being horrible and quitting. So write down the number, and then underneath that, write down what they think would have to happen for it to be a 10. And it was, I'd read.
Anonymous?
No, because I wanted to talk to them about it. Anonymous in the sense that nobody else would see their answer except me and them.
Right.
Right. And it was really illuminating. I'd read that it might have been like Jack Canfield or somebody wrote about it, and I thought it was a great exercise. I learned more about how my employees perceived me from that exercise than all the one-on-ones I've ever had with them. And it didn't catch on because I was hoping that the other leaders at the firm would do the same thing. That was the only time that ever happened. But I bring that up because it seems like when you describe yourself as like servant leadership to me means like you're here to serve them. You want to know what kind of experience they're having. You want to know how you can do better. Like that is. Have you ever done anything like that? Do you feel like you have a good sense of how your employees?
Great question. Yeah. In the late 90s, I was actually working for a bank, and it's the only time in my career that I actually haven't been a professional commercial broker. I spent about a 4-year stint as a lender at a bank, lending money to reinsurance companies. Had an enormous portfolio, and I traveled the world. I was Bermuda, Guernsey, London, Germany, Cayman, Barbados. I was all over the world, where all the insurance money is. I was having a blast and was doing really well. And the bank had identified me as a potential senior leader down the road. And the bank had a very disciplined process for grooming people. So they threw me into this combine. And I think the year that I went in, there were like 6 of us. And they hired an outside firm that specialized in industrial psychology to come in and do evaluations. And I had to take 4 or 5 written tests. It consumed many hours to do this. And then in addition to that, I had to have 4 face-to-face interviews with 2 different people, 2 interviews each, 2 times. And they compiled a report. And the report basically told anybody that would read the report, here's Lee Stacey, here's the good, here's the bad. Here's the stuff we're not sure about. This is the stuff we really like. This is the stuff that we don't like. This is why he would make a potentially good senior leader. This is why he may fail in that role. And they basically cooked up this whole thing, and they gave me a draft copy of it to look at. And I was at the time I was in my early 30s, so I'm still I can't get out of my own ego's way, at that point. And of course I was one of the top performers in my field, so there's a little bit of an ego feed that goes along with that. And I read this report, and I thought, oh my God, really? And it was generally positive, but just like anything else, when you're self-critical, if there's 100 items and 96 of them are positive and 4 negative, you're honing in on the 4 that are negative, because everybody thinks they're much better than they actually are. Well, I looked at this and I took it home and I gave it to my wife, who knows me better than anybody, and she's got a background in this stuff. And she read probably 2 hours of it, which you could probably get through most of it in 2 hours. And I came into the room and she wasn't quite done. And I said, so what do you think? And she looks up at me from the couch and she said, they nailed you.
Oh.
They absolutely nailed you. Even so I look at that, and I have since looked at the items that were perceived as being negative about me, and I've considered those to be improvement targets for myself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question, maybe not necessarily from a people management, but from a professional industrial psychology perspective.
It's pretty eye-opening. It's an exercise.
It's humbling.
Yeah. Lee, I would be remiss on this Veterans Day, Molly, if we didn't all this leadership talk. You obviously got a lot of leadership training in Ranger School, right? And in the military in general. Does any of that experience inform how you view yourself as a leader and how your employees view you as a leader today?
Let me respond, first of all, by taking a page out of the Servant Leadership Handbook and thanking you for your service.
Oh, Lee, stop.
I know you were a platoon leader, and
blush.
you served in Iraq, and you were an officer, and I respect that.
Thank you.
Well done, my friend.
Thank you.
I think that I was one of those kids who was, I think the military was a really good place for me because it afforded me an outlet. I got to do a lot of really cool stuff while I was in that not a lot of people get the opportunity to do in the service. And I got to see some really incredible acts of leadership and extremely strong personalities. And it was really the crucible that I consider my soul having formed as an adult. Much of my, if you talk with any ex-Rangers that get out and they go to college like I did, I was a poster child for the GI Bill. I went in, I did my hitch, and I got out and went, I banged my leg up on a bad jump. I'm a 30% disabled veteran to this day. I got out and went to school on the GI Bill, and the decompression process of coming out of the Ranger Regiment and surrounding yourself with all these fat, lazy, drunk college students that couldn't get anything done. I really, really struggled with that. I almost popped a couple kids in class. I mean, it was like the whole, it was like a little mini PTSD thing going on. Yeah. But I managed to get through it, and I think it took me like a full year to actually, regain my sea legs as a civilian and realize that everybody is not wired. Because I was in this homogenous environment where everybody was a fire-breathing, knuckle-dragging, barrel-chested, freedom-fighting ass-kicker. And then suddenly you're surrounded by people that maybe 1 out of every 500 you meet are that. And, you realize, God, I'm not in my world anymore, and I've got to make the transition. And I think later in my career, one of the leadership things that I went through that really illustrated the dramatic contrast between my military experience and the civilian life, because you know what it's like. I mean, you come back and you try to tell a civilian about what it was like, and you and I have a kinship because we can speak the language. I know you were there, I was there, but trying to communicate to somebody that has never worn a uniform or served the flag, it's nearly impossible, in my opinion, to really communicate So what I found later was a very, very useful training program that I went through. I still remember the name of the program, but it identified how to interact as a salesperson with people that you're selling to. And the whole premise of this program was to say salespeople are usually alpha dogs. They're usually wired to be very forward and engaged and aggressive. And in my industry, I'm either selling to people that own the businesses or they're CFOs. And the people that own the businesses are usually alpha dogs, but the CFOs are not. And the bigger the companies are, the more apt we are to interact with the CFOs. Well, CFOs are accountants, and they tend to be very reserved, and they tend to be very methodical about how they make decisions, and they tend to make them from a non-emotional platform. They want data sets. They want to be convinced, why should I do this? Why does it make sense for me? Give me a Gantt chart and a spreadsheet and quantify this for me. And that's not how I was wired. I was wired where I would come in and say, dude, this is your best option. Trust me, I'm a professional. This is your best option. When instead, this program that I went through taught me to identify the personality traits of the person that I was interacting with and kind of deconstruct what it was going to take to be successful in that opportunity. And for me, somebody with a very strong door, kick the door and shoot him in the face background, I had to be able to not bring that skill set into my sales and management. So it's been a process. I would say that you always try to learn something all the time and get a little bit better with each experience that you have. But my kids would tell you I'm much mellower now than I was 15 years ago. But I'm sorry, I'm straying from your question. How have I? The thing that I will tell you is, my Ranger School class, I started. I weighed 210 pounds when I started, and I weighed 160 when I graduated. So I lost 50 pounds. They starve you, and they give you massive sleep deprivation. And the entire, you hear about the SEAL teams, and they go through BUDS, and they can voluntarily resign at any time by ringing the bell. And Ranger School is the same way. They're constantly, you can be going past the mess hall and smell pancakes on the griddle, and they'll tell you, hey, any guys want to go eat? Just raise your hand. You're done. You can get out of this. And it teaches you to never quit. It teaches you that no matter what kind of biological senses your body is giving you, I am going to not sleep for the next 3 days. I am going to starve myself. I am going to be put into a position where I'm going to have to lead these guys on an effective combat patrol where between this platoon of 30 guys, they may have a collective 50 hours of sleep between all of them in the past 3 days. And you slide into the drone cone and you throw quarters into the pine tree thinking you're going to get a Dr. Pepper out of it. And your brain does all kinds of things and plays tricks on you, but you never, ever, ever quit. And there's tons of people that do. And I just resign myself to not be one of those from the get-go. Not everybody can do, I tell everybody, and if you go out right now, I drive a big diesel crew cab, and on the back window of my diesel crew cab is my Ranger Regimental sticker. And people say, well, you run a company. You've got an MBA from a big Jesuit school. Why don't you have your school back there? Why don't you? I said, because anybody can do that. Yeah. Anybody can. I know some idiots that run companies. No, not very few people can do what I did on the path that I chose to get there. And it kind of puts me in a unique little fraternity, I guess.
Yeah. I got to tell you something too. I think that most of us veterans, and by the way, thank you for your service too, Lee. I should have said that right off the bat, and I'm glad you reminded me too. I think that most vets actually don't want to be recognized or appreciated or singled out at the football games. I think most vets went in, they had a very personal reason, a very personal purpose for going into the military, right? And whatever. And there's a million of those. Everyone's got their own personal reason. When I think about the guys that really should get singled out, I mean, look, every vet deserves praise, right? But the ones that, when I think about the ones that I say, thank you for your service too, there is, in my mind, this subgroup of vets, and the story that you just gave, the Ranger School experience, right? The one where you went through this crucible that when you were spit out of it, you pushed yourself to the outer extremes, the outer boundaries of human limitation. Right. And you did it to achieve that purpose that you set for yourself when you went in. And that shared experience is one that your brothers had in there, right? Where, man, you just know that you would die for every guy that was in that Ranger School with you that went through that experience. That to me is the thing. When I think to myself to say thank you for your service, right? Honestly, I think most of us we don't really feel that we did anything to be thanked for. It was just kind of like I had my own purpose. I think about like what you just described, right? I think about that as a whole different level of commitment And that to me is what I want to thank people for their service for, not necessarily anything else that hundreds of thousands of us.
It's sometimes difficult to know how to respond to that. And I've tried to, usually what I'll say is thanks for remembering, or I'll say, remember the fallen.
Yeah.
Because I always want to make sure that people realize that, we're the lucky ones.
Yeah.
There are people that didn't come back, and they are the ones who are the true heroes that need to be emphasized. And I think if we could all deflect that praise and appreciation, I don't think there's a man or woman that ever served that wouldn't do that if they had the opportunity to do it.
Yeah. All right, we got to go to the lightning round because I want to keep talking to Lee, but his wife's going to get mad at us for keeping him late, and we have too many questions. We're going to have to come. You're going to have to come back, Lee, a different day. You ready for the lightning round?
I'm not sure I understand what that is, but
Good.
sure.
Don't ask questions.
Right.
Just well, here I think what we need to do here, Molly, is take a very short break. Right? We're going to build some suspense. Molly's rolling her eyes at me. We're going to take a very short break, folks. We will be right back. Hey, folks. Alex Gertzberg here. I am CEO of the Gertzberg Law Firm and Cover My Six, and I hope you're enjoying the show so far. I wanted to take a quick second to tell you about something special we're doing at Cover My Six. If you own or run a business, I want you to go to covermysix.com to see if you qualify for a no-cost business vulnerability assessment. My business lawyers will meet with you in person, go over your customer contract, your employee handbook, and your other key legal documents, and help you spot any legal minefields that they see. We'll also give you some guidance on how to stop those minefields from blowing up your business. So go to covermysix.com to see if you qualify and to sign up. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the show. All right, kids. I mean, when you're done with the lightning round, you're going to want to go back to Ranger School, Lee. That's how complex and tough and weather-worn these questions are.
Yeah.
You ready? You ready, Lee?
Is this, you just pepper me with questions and I respond with whatever comes to mind first? Okay.
You think it's easy. You think that this is going to be, we're going to get a look into your soul.
Don't make it so, because it's not. And now he's going to be all disappointed at it. Like, those are easy questions.
That's not true. All right. Go ahead, Molly. You ruined my segue.
Thank you, Alex Gertzberg. Lee, what are you binging on TV?
What am I binging? Military History Channel.
Okay. All right. Any other shows?
Don't watch much TV.
Okay.
I would say that if they're, I love the Law and Order series. I'm
all of them. Like, isn't there
pretty much?
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm a Trekkie. I like sci-fi. So yeah, I've been a Trekkie since I was a kid.
Excellent. Lee, what's your perfect day?
Oh, it would involve, let's see, firearms, boats, my children, my wife, and friends.
Okay, let's go back to the first two things. Firearms and boats. That just hanging on a boat with a firearm?
I'm a strong advocate of the Second Amendment. I'm the guy that if something goes wrong in your neighborhood, you're going to send your entire family to my house because of the way that my basement is equipped.
Good to know.
But I used to shoot competitively, and it's something I picked up in the Ranger Regiment. And, yeah,
your hobby. Okay, what is on your mind?
Oh, right now, believe it or not, juggling Thanksgiving plans, trying to make sure that we get all the grandparents and the grandchildren and most of our families in Michigan, so the logistics are kind of ugly. And we're taking my two adult children, their two significant others, to Disney World over Christmas.
Oh, wow.
So that's going to be different.
And those are boyfriend, girlfriend, because you have college kids, right?
They are boyfriend, girlfriend.
Well, not
I have
that
two.
You can't be married in college, but
I have two. I will have two 24-year-old boys, a 23-year-old girl, and a 21-year-old girl, and my wife.
So here's the deal. I'm thinking with the basement comment that that they'll stay in line. If I know Lee,
we're actually really, really fortunate. We've got great kids. We really do. I hear all the stories, the challenges that a lot of people have with their children. We've really lucked out there.
Probably because they know what you have in the basement.
I don't. You know what? As long as the end result is that they're positive, tax-paying citizens of America, I don't care how they get there.
Well,
Amen.
You're all going to Disney World together, and there's no kids involved.
Yeah. We
Kids at heart.
we bought a timeshare there 20 years ago. We might be the only couple you'll ever meet that actually a timeshare actually worked out well for them.
Oh, wow.
We bought a timeshare down at the Beach Club, which is nestled in between Epcot and Hollywood Studios. And like my daughter, we told our children their senior year of high school, when spring break comes, just so that the kids don't go party somewhere down south, I said, we will go on a family trip and you can go anywhere you want. And, my daughter she's a junior in college now. She just graduated 3 years ago. And I asked her, in the fall, I said, honey, where do you want to go at spring break? And she looks at me, she goes, duh, Disney World.
Do you guys go through the Magic Kingdom park together?
Yep.
You do?
Yep.
What? That is just a slice of Americana right there, Molly. I'll tell you. How wholesome an activity is this? I assumed that you were going to say, no, we haven't done that in years. They just go around Orlando and go. But no, you're doing it the traditional old-fashioned way.
Every park changes, and maybe in some ways subtly, maybe in some ways more dramatic. But there are times where, like now, I've probably been to the Magic Kingdom 20 times as an adult. When my wife and I were dating, I actually took her to Disney World before we were engaged. Wow. So it's been we're a Disney family, unabashedly proud of it.
Disney would have to pay me to come back to Disney World or Disneyland at Disney World.
Why?
Oh, because it was horrible.
You didn't have a good experience there?
No. It was the wrong time of the year. It was July.
You got to be strategic about that.
So hot. The kids were too young. There is a too young time where they're just screaming and crying, and no, I've got
a picture of when we took our children both for the first time. One was 2.5 and the other was 8 months.
Oh my gosh.
And if my wife actually has a side hustle, and it's travelboss.com. It's like a little picture of one of our bulldogs flying a biplane or something like that. And she plans Disney vacations for people. So they come to her and they say, which park should we go to? These are how old our kids are. And she maps everything out for them and makes all their plans. And she loves doing it. So.
She might have done that for us one year. We had somebody do that for us. I wonder if it was your wife.
That's funny.
I don't think so. She only started it maybe a year ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but she's good at it.
Well, there's so much involved. I mean, I can see I can see why there's a demand for something like that, because there's a lot to know.
It can make the difference for a first-time visitor on having a positive or negative experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's a commitment. It's a financial commitment. It's a time commitment. Wrong moves there, and you're going to have a Molly experience.
Exactly. I did love the parade at night. If you weren't an insurance
broker
agent, what would you be?
I went to college to be a federal agent. I was going to go work for the ATF after I graduated. And I had all the credentials, took the test, disabled veteran, preferred hiring status. I was going to do what I knew what to do. And I was going to go do what I knew how to do, kick the door in and shoot people in the face. And as it ends up, the Clinton administration had a hiring freeze for federal employees in the year that I graduated. And it's funny because through my connections in the military, I actually got plugged into an ATF agent. I can say his name now because he's retired. His name was Paul Cross, and he was in charge of the ATF office in Wheeling, West Virginia. And he was coaching me through the process of going through the agent interview system. And he and I were talking, and now I'm going to tell you when this was, and you're going to wonder why, but it'll make sense in a second. In the fall of 92, because I'm graduating college in 93. And he's telling me, all right, well, your next interview is going to be like this, and this is what they're looking for, and then you're going to go into this test where they show you pictures and yada yada yada. And I called him one day and I said, hey, I'm going in for this interview. He goes, listen, call me tomorrow and tell me how it goes. I want to hear how it goes. He goes, but wait a minute, I'm gonna give you my team satellite phone number. This is like 1992, okay? I said, satellite phone? I said, that sounds expensive. And he goes, oh no, screw it. We order pizzas with the thing all the time. Not a big deal. And I said, okay, I'm not going to ask where you were. I'm not. And he goes, yeah, we're packing everything up. We're going to some shithole out in Texas called Waco. So
oh my God.
my personal coach through this process was actually spun up to go out to Waco, and he was there talking to me on a sat phone the next day. So that gives you a frame of reference for timing. But when I graduated, I was dating this girl that was in grad school who I've now been married to for 25 years. And Alex, have you met Nikki? Yeah. She's a social worker, but she's not a typical social worker. She is an alpha dog. People wonder how the heck we've stayed married this long because we're both very strong alphas. And she basically told me, I mean, she's stunningly hot and very intelligent. She can have her pick of whatever man she wants. And she told me, I'm dating you. My mom likes you. Put a ring on my finger or I'm moving on. And so I had about a 6-month window there and I needed a job. So the ATF was going to have me wait for a year. So I opened up the newspaper and there's a tombstone ad that was for an insurance underwriting trainee and strong preference given to military veterans. So I applied.
And that was that. All right. I have one more. Your guilty pleasure.
That's a good one, Molly. It's a new one.
I just wrote it in there.
You are the first to get that lightning round question.
That's the Molly question.
Scotch and cigars.
Okay. I like it.
2 guilty pleasures. They go together, though.
Yeah.
Really nicely.
What's yours?
I would say, I mean, I do. That's really close. I might have to steal.
Ditto.
I do like scotch and cigars a lot. I really like listening to music loudly. Does that count? Like that really changes my mood really well.
If that's what you feel.
But is that something? Is a guilty pleasure? Is the point of it you want to feel a little guilty about it? It's not good for you.
I mean, it could mean whatever you want. Yeah.
All right.
I'd say mine's popcorn and swearing.
Popcorn and swearing. All right, I'd buy that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a potty mouth, Lee. A lot of things people don't know about me. Yes.
Have you met me?
It's our Irish heritage. Alex, what you got?
Lee, you are shipwrecked on a desert island for a minimum of 3 months, but which may be the rest of your natural born life. You have no idea going in. You may bring with you any single author, their entire bibliography. Who's the author?
Any single? I can't say.
Only one author. And that's the only author you may be reading for the rest of your life.
It's a toss-up between 3, but I'll pick one. Robert Jordan. He authored the Wheel of Time series.
Okay.
It's
like fantasy.
It's fantasy fiction. Yeah. Very well written, and there's enough of it there where you could read each book a couple times and still find things in it.
Who are the other 2?
Robert Ludlum.
Yeah.
I'm a big Ludlum fan. I've read everything he's written.
The Bourne
stuff? Yep, he did the Bourne Identity, the Bourne Supremacy. Yeah. He wrote, he's, and then Clancy. I'm a big Clancy fan.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I haven't, Clancy, mine is Kurt Vonnegut, but there was a time when I was obsessed with anything Tom Clancy wrote.
Yeah. I picked up I picked up The Hunt for Red October back when nobody knew what it was. And I read it and I'm like, oh my God, this is great.
It's impossible to put it down once you start.
Yeah.
Any of his stuff.
I bet you I could.
Unless you're Molly. Molly, the size of these books would give you a migraine. Same shipwreck, same desert island, same indefinite period of time, somewhere between 3 months and the rest of your life. Now you may bring with you any single musician's entire discography. Who is the musician or band?
Zeppelin.
Ooh, excellent choice.
You know what? I thought of a little game that I would like to play with this.
Okay.
With that question. Yeah. And we can't do it now because he's already shared. But, I think at this point we've gotten to know Lee a little bit. I mean, you know him more than I do, but I feel like I've gotten to know him. I would like you and I to write down who we think it would be, because never in a million years would I have said Zeppelin.
Oh, really? I would. I know Lee a little bit.
Right. But that'll be fun. Let's add that.
Okay. What was yours?
Zeppelin.
Yours was it Billy Joel?
No.
Who's
Journey, probably.
Journey? Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Mine was Bob Dylan.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
Just, but Zeppelin would be up there for the music, Dylan for the lyrics,
Yep.
Lee, what is the habit or routine that you practice on a daily basis that has given you the most mileage?
I would have to say that I prep for my day in advance. So I try to go to bed at night. I'm a voracious Outlook user, and I will prioritize my tasks, my emails. I write a lot of my emails at night, and then I save them in draft form, and then I release them in the morning. And I do that on purpose so that people don't think that I'm like a psycho boss or a psycho,
So smart.
and I try to, I'll release them early in the morning, and I prep between 9 and 11 every night. I set up everything I'm going to do the next day. And I find that if I can write that prescription and stick to it, I'm much more productive.
And there's a lot of science behind this. I bet this is true for you. When you do that, I think your subconscious works on stuff that you planned while you're sleeping.
That's really deep. You're giving me way too much.
Totally. There's all kinds of science.
Wow.
If they did these experiments on like business school students where they had them just answer this one question before they went to bed. The question was, what is a problem I'm trying to solve? And they would just identify the problem. Those that did that the night before were more likely to come up with a solution the next day than those that didn't.
It makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, there's all kinds of data behind it.
When you were talking about you're a huge Outlook person, how do you create tasks on Outlook? Is there a task bar?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
What do
Could you
use?
run a course on Outlook?
It's actually, I would say if there's 100 Outlook users in a room, there may be 3 that utilize
that really
80% or more of what to do. It's an extremely powerful tool, and you can use it for. I use it for task delegation. I use it for like if I have an issue with the client and I know like I have certain clients that sometimes don't respond to information requests. Like you need things from them and they don't respond to you.
I don't know who you're talking about.
I can pen my system to remind me to say, okay, we've got to get this to the underwriter 45 days out, then 40 days out, then 35 days out. And it'll allow me to pen all of that in advance and then not have to worry about going back and thinking about that situation. It's been a lot. I've got so many things going on. It's been really, really helpful for me to do that.
Can I comment on what Lee just said?
If it's defending yourself, no.
No. Just listen to me. Hear me out. So Lee is the president of this company, right? How many people work under you? 100 some?
Oh, no. We've got about 40.
40
in
people.
My group, yeah.
So it's a lot of people. Lee's a pretty important cat, right? I don't often delegate everything the way I'm supposed to, like, bill paying and remembering things like renewing your insurance. The president of the company is emailing me saying, Alex, you're about to lapse. I'm going to keep bothering you until you tell me not to. And he does personally, right? And here's the thing about that, right? I do business with McGowan and I don't have to. And I'm a vet, right? I mentioned this to Lee. So some of us can get veterans benefits, including insurance, that are less expensive than what you pay, Molly, right? Mm-hmm. I won't do that. I will still keep business with McGowan because of things like that, right? And because there is a palpable, I mean, this gets back to what I was saying earlier about the emotional side of business transactions, right? There is this emotional, noticeable feeling that I get from talking to Drew, from talking to Lee, that I am, I'm a member of the team, that I'm part of this family, right? That is not transactional. It's more emotional, and it's things like that. It's things like the personal reminders.
Or you could just give him the paperwork that he wants so that he doesn't have to constently hound you for the paperwork.
In the spirit of full disclosure,
I could.
That was the situations like that. People know that we're friends, and people on my staff will come to me and say, Lee, we need Alex's packet, and he responds to you.
Yes.
Would you please get this from him? That happens.
Yes.
And that's okay.
But the thing is, I also think that you space out your reminders, and so you are clearly an Outlook ninja.
Yeah.
Because I know, I can see the trail of reminders.
I'm just going to ignore that because I know another one's coming in 20 days. Is that what you're saying? Like when you get the reminder, like I can ignore that one because I know Lee has one scheduled.
What I've learned about myself is anything with deadlines or anything that is administrative in nature, right? I need to have somebody else handle for me because I hyper focus on my clients, but not on myself.
It's easy to do what you want to do as opposed to what you have to do sometimes, and we have to juggle as leaders, as industry leaders, regardless of whether you're running a small company or a large company. We've got to strike a balance there that makes sense and works.
Well, and to your earlier point too, insurance is the kind of thing that you buy it because you gotta, and I view it as, no offense, it's like going to the dentist's office, right? Like I don't want to go to the dentist, but I know I gotta, right? What I'm saying is that working with you guys makes me forget that. I mean, I definitely have a very noticeable feeling, emotional connection as being like part of this family that cares about me.
I will thank you for that, and I will tell you that my staff is going to be thrilled to hear that.
Oh, good.
And I will take that back and share that with them.
Make sure that just tell them to listen.
No, they're
to the podcast.
Laura, Claudia, all of them. Tell them, Laura, you guys, if you're listening, I'm so sorry for being a pain in the ass. But thank you for protecting me.
They're good people.
They are good people. They're amazing. Yeah. All right, Lee. We got 3 left. So what do you believe is the definition of a life well lived?
Gosh, I wish I would have had these questions in advance. Did you give these to me in advance? You didn't, did you?
Mm-mm.
That would have been too easy.
Yeah. I guess that if my tombstone reads a dedicated, committed husband and father, I will have done a good job in this world.
Awesome.
Amen.
That's a good answer.
I bet you it will.
I bet it will too, actually. Okay. We have a question that we have named after a former guest. Her name is Christy George. She has a magazine that she publishes called Neighbors. Go out and get your copy, folks. The Christy is, if you could interview any person who ever lived, who would it be?
Heinz Guderian.
Gosh, I want to guess, and I want to guess correctly, but
Alex Gertzberg? Did he?
I've heard the name for sure, but
did he invent ketchup?
I am stumped. I doubt it.
He was a German general in World War II. He's considered to be everybody knows about Rommel and everybody knows about all the other big generals, but Guderian was the father of the Blitzkrieg.
Ooh.
And he was the person who basically designed the strategic platform with which the Nazis overtook Europe. He was not a Nazi, at least that's arguable, but he ended up not being executed or sent to prison for life like many of his compatriots. But he was widely regarded as the only person that could publicly disagree with Hitler and get away with it. And he was thought of as a very intelligent, forward thinker, and I've read a couple books about the guy, and he just fascinates me.
Oh, that's interesting. Heinz Guderian. I'm going to look that up. You know who I've been thinking about learning about is Otto von Bismarck. Do you know much about that guy?
I know who he is, and I know if you... I'm kind of a World War II geek, so yes. We were talking earlier when we were on break about the great courses and the lectures that I've been listening to, and actually one of them that I am going to get focuses on Bavarian history, and Otto von Bismarck is in there. You probably know this, but the largest battleship that the Germans ever built was called the Bismarck, and it was that stuff. The Bavarian, the lineage of Bavarian royalty is in itself fascinating to track back. I'm with you on that. I think that's fascinating stuff.
Okay. And now I want to talk about Otto von Bismarck with you, but I'm going to fight the urge. Okay.
I don't know a heck of a lot about him other than who he is and what he did. And
yeah. Well, I will leave this for both of you, right? So I believe he was the prime minister of Bavaria, or one of the German, whatever kingdoms. And he created a network of alliances among all of the European countries who had just got done with the Napoleonic Wars, right, in the 1800s, which up to that point were the bloodiest wars. They lasted like 30 years or something like that. And he had created such a complex and intricate network of alliances such that if one attacked another, it would create such catastrophe, as did happen in World War I, that nobody did it. Nobody wanted to mess with anybody because it would be so catastrophic. And sure enough, when it happened with Germany, with the Kaiser, it was as catastrophic as one would think it would be, only he thought it could never, nobody would be crazy enough to pull the fuse on this thing. But he was so brilliant and so forward thinking that people couldn't even understand some of the alliances that he made. But he did it, and there was peace in Europe for like 100 years, until World War I. Molly, you okay? Your eyes are glazing over. I could tell. Anywho, all right. The final lightning round question. What is an embarrassing thing about yourself that very few people know, and for extra credit, that nobody knows?
I'm pretty transparent. Gosh, I don't know. I can share. I wouldn't necessarily say this is embarrassing, but people kind of look at me cockeyed when I say it. When I'm kind of a big physical alpha guy. But as I mentioned to you earlier, my wife and I did community theater for 10 years, and I've worn makeup and been on stage and played many roles in comedies and dramas, and as one of the only straight actors in a field that is dominated mostly by effeminate gay men, I didn't have a lot of competition for the alpha dog roles, and it's not that I'm a terribly good actor. I got cast a lot simply because I was the only guy that went out for the role. It was my wife and I's thing to do for the first 10, 12 years that we were married.
I love that. What's your favorite show that you were in?
I have been in a couple of Larry Shue plays. Larry Shue he was going to be the next Woody Allen until he was killed in an airplane accident, I think, in his mid-30s. But he wrote 5 or 6 plays, and I've been in several of them. I played the role of Rick Steadman in his screenplay of The Nerd, and Rick Steadman is the nerd. So, and then I played a role of I know this is going to be a stretch, but I was an obnoxious, tattooed KKK Klansman.
Oh my!
In one of his comedies, and the guy's the
sounds
character,
like a real pick me up. This guy.
The guy's a buffoon. He's the ultimate buffoon, but I play a good buffoon. So people look at me and they're usually really surprised to hear that I've done something.
Yeah.
But
love it. So do you think when we go outside, there's going to be tons of snow?
Right now? Oh, it was snowing today, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, no, it wasn't starting, but that rain was supposed to turn to snow. And you got quite a journey home, right?
Yeah, it's not bad.
Listen to the great courses on the way.
Yes.
I formally and officially declare this podcast episode a giant success, Molly.
Yes.
What do you think?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
Lee, that was awesome. Thank you for giving us hours of your time today. That was really good. I have so many more questions about adoption and about ranger school and about insurance, but we are going to have to save them for next time. Before we go, Lee, anything you want to get out there to the universe? Anything you're working on? Anything you want people to know? Anything at all?
Epstein didn't kill himself?
I don't think he killed himself.
Yeah,
there's a lot of powerful people involved in his stuff that let it happen. I think he was killed too.
I'm actually trying to I'm trying to honor the lineage these days. Anytime an ex-special operations soldier has any kind of voice in public, they're throwing that in at the end. There was a ex-SEAL who was a dog trainer, and they were interviewing about dog training, and right at the very end they said, "Okay, thank you, have a nice day." He goes, "Yeah, and Epstein didn't kill himself." So
is that right?
I'm just trying to be one of those guys, I guess.
That's funny.
Oh my.
Molly, how about you?
You know what? Just go by the calendar.
By the calendar.
Yeah, and then my book is coming out in 2 weeks. So you can get that.
This would be Molly's 4th book, and she doesn't read.
Yes.
You have me
Correct.
drive over here to talk to me when you've got a bona fide author here in the room.
And award-winning documentarian, but we will. But whatever.
There's only so many things you can ask Molly before you start wanting to blow your brains out.
It's just jealousy.
When's that book coming out, Molly? The 4th one, the 4th installment.
In 2 weeks. I know that my publisher just sent me something I have to go over tonight, so hopefully it'll go to print this week, and then, yeah.
Are you ready for the rapid fire session?
Oh, boy.
So what's the book about?
So I have written children's books based on traditions here in Chagrin Falls. So one's about Blossom Time, one's about the pumpkin roll, which is what my documentary is about. One's about Mortimer, who is the Chagrin Falls mascot for the school.
Okay.
And the one that's coming out is called Sherman, and it's about a popcorn kernel that saves the popcorn ball drop, which is something we have here on New Year's Eve.
Sherman, the popcorn kernel.
Kernel, yes. Yes.
Get Molly's book, folks.
Yes, there's Sherman, everybody.
Oh my gosh, that's darling.
Yeah.
My illustrator is a junior at Chagrin Falls High School.
Is that right?
Yes,
Good
she's
for you.
amazing. So yes, do that.
That's awesome.
What about you, Big A?
Well,
What you got?
It's Cover My Six. Life is all about Cover My Six these days. There's new stuff on the website, so go there. CoverMy6.com. You were one of the first people that I ever talked to about Cover My Six.
I remember that conversation.
Yeah, when it was just the germ of an idea.
In there.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was it. I mean,
I remember because you'd laid it out and you said, "What do you think?"
I was on an R&D thing, like just a fact finding kind of thing, and you were on my list of people that I wanted to pick people's brains out.
Thank you.
About from, yeah, you're like, gave me some really good ideas. And if you want to see how those ideas evolved into this groundbreaking legal audit that is Cover My Six, folks, you want to go to covermy6.com and check it out. If you're a business owner, here's what I've been telling people, Lee. You're paying for Cover My Six whether you want to or not. So you might as well be deliberate about it and get it to actually do what it's supposed to do, because otherwise you're just getting sued for things you don't need to be sued for. So covermy6.com. And folks, if you have listened this far, you are Nicole Stacey, Lee's 2 college-aged children and wife, and the other couple, hopefully 1,000 people that are listening right now. If you're listening all this way, then it's because you really wanted to hear this interview, and I expect that you've enjoyed it as much as we have.
We thank you.
And we thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we ask you, whatever thing you are listening to us on, if it's iTunes, if it's Stitcher, if it's Spotify, YouTube, there is a way for you to leave a review and to rate us. And I want you to do that. You'd be doing Molly a personal favor.
Mm-hmm.
She'd be grateful to you.
I would be.
And me too. So do that, folks, and that helps us out. Lee,
let us know
you.
how you're listening, where you're listening, what you're doing while you're listening. That's what I want to know. Are you exercising, driving the car, cooking dinner? I want to know that. I don't want to know if you're having sex listening. That I would not want to know.
I kind of want to know.
Well,
folks,
now I want to know.
Thanks for listening. We appreciate it, Lee. Thank you so much. That was
Lee.
awesome.
It's a pleasure
Thanks for
meeting
picking me.
you.
Appreciate it. I was honored. Thanks.
See you next time, folks.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we thank you for listening. And remember to check out the Gertzberg Law Firm. Whether you are starting, running, growing, or transitioning a business, or if you need to create or update your wills, trust, or estate plan, our team will give you an incredible level of personalized attention and a passionate commitment to meet your objectives. We are veteran-owned, and our award-winning lawyers have the highest ranking from Super Lawyers and Avo. We have also recently received the coveted Weatherhead 100 Upstarts Award for a second year in a row, and we are among the first Ohio business law firms to offer our clients a non-billable alternative on every single matter we handle for them, and opt out of the billable hour. What we are most proud of, though, are the many things our clients rely on us for. We successfully defend them in court, but we also help them avoid the courtroom with our Cover My Six service. We protect their assets through good estate and succession planning, and we assist our clients in many non-legal business services like recruiting and business development. We want our clients to feel confident in their choices and to help them resolve any issues or potential problems quickly and efficiently so they can get back to what they love, running their businesses. More than just litigators, we are trusted advisors, problem solvers, and growers of businesses. Let us help you and your company. Call us or find us online to learn more. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time.